All right. This is the September 20th, 2023 meeting of the Node.js Technical Steering Committee. All right. Looking at the agenda. All right. So downgrade to NPM 9.6.4.5 to avoid potential licensing issues. Seems like we kind of resolved this already in the release that we just shipped 10.1, and I think we're waiting on OpenJS lawyers to tell us about the Blue Oak license. Is that correct? And or is there anything else to discuss on this?
I think it was resolved. I think we got like an okay from Robin to go ahead with the release, and Matteo and Miles are discussing it there. There should probably be a follow-up to like get it officially approved. I'm not sure if anyone is actually doing that though.
Okay. Well, if they're looking into it, I'm assuming they'll contact us when they have something. All right. Is there anything else on this one, or should we move on?
Sorry, since the issue seems to be stale, where was this approved or where was it resolved?
I think it was resolved in the release PR, the like 20.7.0 release
Okay,
PR.
thank you.
There was discussion in the OpenJS report.
At least it's linked from there, so you can find it through that. Sorry, Benjamin.
No, I was mostly saying the same thing. There is an issue in the OpenJS repository of discussion with the foundation.
Okay. All right, next one, module support ES modules without file extension within module scope. So this one's kind of related to me. Oh, we have another person to promote. So it's been kind of on our to-do list for years now to support extensionless files having ESM syntax. You can already have an extensionless file with CommonJS syntax, and people want to write ESM. So it was briefly permitted for like a matter of weeks when we were working on the experimental ESM implementation years ago. And it was locked down, just throw an error, because people realized, oh, if we do this, then we can never have extensionless files mean WASM potentially. So, and that's just like, and then so it was like, okay, we'll lock it down and then we'll come back to this when we figure out how to do WASM. Well, fast forward, we think we have a solution now for how to disambiguate JavaScript from WASM. And so we were going to try to ship that. I started kind of like a primary issue with a bunch of like child issues about like, hey, I think we need to solve this on a bigger scale than just extensionless ESM files, but rather like handling or extensionless files within a module scope, specifically like extensionless files anywhere, because most of the time if you have an extensionless file, you want it in like user lib or something like that, as well as just like people want to just make ESM enabled by default everywhere. And so I started some issues trying to sketch out the specifics of what that would look like. And that I think has more or less found consensus. There is, I think the user Olivia Medeiros was pushing this PR as saying like, this doesn't need to wait on the larger question because this wouldn't be a breaking change. I replied on the issue that I think while that may be true, I think we should still ship the like larger thing first because most people want to do extensionless files not in a package module scope. So if we enable extensionless files only in a package module scope, it's like kind of confusing and or frustrating. So if we ship some flag to enable it everywhere, then we could ship this afterward that enables it. Like, okay, within a package scope, you don't need the flag, but everywhere you still need the flag. But at least we've already shipped a flag that enables us everywhere. And Matteo also commented on the issue, approving that approach. So that, I mean, it was only the three of us discussing it, really, I think. So that was kind of where it left off. I think the adding this to the TSC agenda was kind of before Matteo and I commented with that like proposed like rollout plan. And I commented a few days ago asking Livia if this was still something that they want to discuss at this meeting, and if Livia would attend, and I got a non-committal response. So anyway, without them being here, I think there's probably nothing to be done, but now you know the backstory. I've started working on a PR to implement this, the like parent issue. I think it's going to be -- experimental type as the name of the flag. And I've started working on a PR that implements it. That does. There was only like 3 behaviors, I think, in that proposal, which was like extensionless files everywhere could be ESM with this flag, and in a package scope where there's no type field, unless it's under node modules, it defaults to ESM rather than defaulting to CommonJS. Like the lack of a type field means ESM with this flag. And I think that's, oh, and input type. If you're using experimental type equals module, then you don't need to pass input type. You can just do experimental type equals module, eval, etc. So those would be the 3 things where it's essentially flipping 3 defaults from CommonJS to modules in this flag. There's the other piece about having the entry parsed as a URL, and there were a bunch of questions raised about that, and I'm thinking like that could just be a separate PR, like this is going to be an experimental flag, so maybe we decide not to do it. If we decide to do it, it's probably in depth enough that it needs its own PR. Anyway, I've started that. I don't know how much, if anyone else would like to work on it, I have limited time to work on it, so I'm happy for other contributors or other collaborators to help with this. So. All right, there's a lot of things on here, so I want to keep rushing along unless anyone's got anything else. WebSocket proposal for new core module. Feel like this is resolved? Maybe we just forgot to take off the tag, or is there anything else to discuss here?
There's multiple requests for changes by TSC members, I believe, and there's no point in trying to overrule that here. So yeah, I don't think we have to discuss it.
Oh, this was that other WebSocket implementation, like not the Undici one?
Yes. I believe the Undici one has landed, and the other one is now kind of up in the air.
Okay.
I'll remove it from the agenda.
Okay. All right. All right, removing primordials. I think, Benjamin, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we didn't get consensus on that issue. And what we're going to do instead, and we did get consensus on that, I actually went and just created like the team in like the strategic initiative, is for a new strategic initiative where we're going to clearly write all the use cases we care about for primordial stuff like the process exit handler. And then we're going to quantify that, figure out what we believe is like an important use case to cover and what like maybe should have primordials, and then come with recommendations to the TSC. Obviously, like participation is welcome from like TSC members, collaborators, and like if you're seeing this in the YouTube live and are like want to join, like outside contributors are very welcome. We will hopefully be like going over the use cases, writing them down, and coming with conclusions to the TSC in 2 weeks. And I am optimistic. I think like the issue that Yagis created outlines like a lot of disagreements, but also a lot of agreements, a lot of areas where we can improve the code and remove primordials, or like improve the code by adding them. And I am very optimistic that we can reach a conclusion where we get it like by consensus and not a vote. So that's like the current status.
I am excited to see this move forward. Yes. I saw some comments in various places about, I feel like there were some initial things where like, we're gonna say no primordials everywhere with a few exceptions, and the exceptions were like errors and something else. And I feel like I've heard people ask for more exceptions like REPL and maybe module loader. So I guess that's something to deal with, but I feel like you can figure that out in the issues. So. All right, anything else on that? All right, additions to import.meta. This seems to keep coming up week after week. So James created a new repo in the WinterCG. Was it a repo? I guess it was a repo in the WinterCG org, where it's like a registry for runtimes to define their properties on import meta that they want to be defined, where the idea is that not every runtime needs to implement every property, but if you're gonna implement something called, say, dir name, then it should follow the spec that's in this registry. Like the last thing we want is two runtimes shipping divergent implementations for this under the same name. So I guess then the next step is for me to point my proposal from file name and dir name at this registry, unless anyone else wants to pick that up. And then, I don't see why that wouldn't land in the registry, because I got other runtimes. I mean, the only reason it wouldn't land, I think, is if other runtimes like said, no, we're going to do something different with import.meta file name or import.meta.dir name. But no, there's already been a bunch of discussion and no one said anything like that. So I assume this should be able to land. And then that can unblock that PR that started all of this. So I think unless there's any concerns about any of that, I think we could probably take this off the agenda going forward. And then, and then also as part of that, there was a discussion about handling future cases. I kind of feel like because this is like a namespace that we need to coordinate with other runtimes, it really needs a lot more guardrails than just typical PRs. So I think I like where we landed near the end of like creating a GitHub team that could get pinged whenever someone wants to add this, and then like we could make them code owners or something like that. So then the people on that team know, oh yeah, there's this process about the WinterCG registry and blah, blah, blah. And then so the people on the team could ensure that that process gets followed and or rope in the TSC to overrule like some kind of adverse outcome at the WinterCG. And yeah, and we could formalize this somehow in wherever it goes in our docs. So. All right. Unless there's anything else, moving on. Create Node.js /socket repository for Node implementation of Cloudflare socket API. I don't know anything about this. Does anyone have this one?
It's essentially just a request to create a new repository under the Node org to work on a prototype implementation of Cloudflare socket API for Node.js. And so far, nobody has really expressed that that is the correct move at this point in time. The Cloudflare API hasn't been standardized. There's not a ton of feature requests for that in Node, and there's not really any point in pulling it into the org just yet.
Okay, so this is something we're not doing then?
Not this week, probably. So if someone else weighs in on the discussion and says, okay, yeah, we should do it this week because standardization is moving forward, or because suddenly there's a lot of demand for this in the Node community, then perhaps next week. But for this week, I would just table it.
Okay, so I'll leave this one on the agenda, but I think everything else so far can be removed from the agenda. Is that right?
I don't know about the extension-less module thing.
Well, that was only added from at Livia's request. So, you know, we've discussed it. There's not,
I see.
I think, nothing to be done at the moment. So, if Livia wants to come back with a specific ask, like, hey, TSC, vote to overrule this block or something like that, then I guess you could do so. But that wasn't, there wasn't a particular ask when I pinged earlier this week to ask about, hey, are you going to join this meeting, or is there anything you want
Sounds good.
discussed at the meeting? So, all right, that's the end of the agenda. Anything else? Oh, strategic initiatives. Are we anything to do there? I'm inclined to just wrap up the public portion so we can get to the private. Is there anything else to cover in public?